Welcome, everybody, to Mentor Time. Today, we're going to talk about AI in our work and where are we now. We've done a couple things on AI in the last year, and the reason for this topic is what we'll be delving into more, and that is the rapid acceleration of AI, LLMs, large language models, capacity and expansion. So there's a lot more to discuss for you all with professional development. As always, we start with my screen moving. Oh, I'm not on the right thing. I'll have to edit that. There's my arrows. Today's takeaway. It's really time for you to show your AI impact and experience everywhere you can. We had some models last time, one model, in fact, that I used to describe a way in which you could begin to incorporate this into CV, resume, LinkedIn, and talking about it. But we haven't seen a whole lot of job postings. Here's what I've been hearing from people when I talk to them were about the way in which they're implementing it in jobs for those who are employed. There are still a lot of people telling me, I can't use any LLM at work. How do I keep up? Most of these people are using them at home, not surprisingly. I get this a lot. I'm just doing basic work with the AI we use at my office. I'm thinking about someone at CDC who last year told me they were only allowed to use it and use a CDC specific LLM for doing literature reviews. And this is the one that comes up over and over again, and we will be delving into this more today. AI is a tool. I can't really show the impact of using it. And yes and no, and similar to things we've discussed in the past, it all depends on your results and outcomes. So here's how we'll get here today. We'll talk about AI. It's rapidly maturing. I call it ballooning. I see it really ballooning. And then what it means to be doing AI, because everybody's talking about doing AI as if it's something specific that we're all learning. And then we always end with what should you do? So as we get on to the balloon enlarging and blowing up, I want to show you just specifically about this particular AI, which is the large language model of OpenAI called ChatGPT. But OpenAI is the business that started it. Now, this was behind the firewall for Financial Times. I have access to several things that are behind firewalls, but I couldn't get this. So I just took the image to give them credit. I've got the reference there. But this and another one version I saw that for some reason didn't have the URL for, this shows you the penetration of big organizations, major organizations that have committed to, are working with, are getting are giving funding to OpenAI to create and expand their businesses. So we can see Google, Oracle, Amazon, Meta. We know NVIDIA is huge because NVIDIA is the chip maker for all of the companies who now need to buy chips to make these things go. So interestingly enough, they're heading off that way. When I looked at what's been new in AI since 6 months ago, about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, we did something on AI and branding. We did AI last year. Well, I did AI. Here I am saying it. We talked about it. This is it. On the right is a smaller infographic. It was hard to see from McKinsey. And the most important part of it is this number, 3x. This 3x, it's hard to read, it's a little bit blurry. 3 times more employees are using AI for a third or more of their work than their leaders imagine. And I'm sitting here saying, then they're doing it without approval, maybe from their corporate IT entity and the company, or the leaders really don't have a good sense of what's going on. But remember that number. It's striking that many more employees are using it in what they consider their work. A third isn't a huge amount, but that's still a lot. We used this when we talked a few months ago because it's important. This is an analysis of a year of a response of searching of people using artificial intelligence models. It was, I think this is Chat GPT again. They had 1 year and 1 month, as I recall. And the three that were the standout areas are the big wide ones. The green one, practical guidance, people looking for how to, what to do, ideation, ideas. Seeking information, huge. It's replaced Google search for many people. Many people go straight to their LLM in the morning when they're getting started for the day to get organized, for example. I know, I read this and think, really? Specific information, the largest of that's about, each of these are a little over from 20 to 30%. And then many people, not surprisingly, are using it for writing. And those are the areas where we're finding steady growth in what people are using it and doing with it. As it's improved, I commented on specific info, as it's improved, we are seeing that more people are beginning to find fewer errors in the hallucinations, they called them when ChatGPT first came out. But I can tell you people are posting on LinkedIn, and it happened to me a few weeks ago. Data analysis, I had it do something and it totally missed the mark and couldn't do it. It helps me troubleshoot Excel formulas, but it gave me analysis of a table that I could quickly compute myself and know that it was wrong. Another change, we're beginning to see people measure how much is actually being used in different sectors of our business world and how much is expected. Computer and mathematical is going to grow extremely quickly because it's already been growing quickly. In the last year of having large language models, they've had a huge leap in their capacities, what they're able to do. But there's expected in much more in some areas, such as office and admin support and sales and related. We could see some of that. So I think that they're underestimating some of the areas that they think that it's not going to happen that much, such as architecture and engineering. I think there's going to be much more there than we see because, as you'll see from this next quote, which was a summary comment by Hung Lee, who writes this newsletter every week, Brain Food. He says, AI doesn't have to be better than a human. It just needs to get over an acceptance bar, and it'll be implemented because of the reduced overhead. And we've seen that. We've talked about it a few weeks ago in the work quarterly update on work trends. So I think we're going to begin to see more kinds of work being tried out, if you will, by using the AI model. And I think that's some of what's underscoring many of the layoffs that companies are still doing. So what does it mean to be doing AI? This is an area where a few months ago I couldn't find much in here. There was information on it. There weren't criteria on frameworks for digital literacy, because for us to get to AI literacy, we first have to talk about digital literacy. So this came out, I think, from UNESCO in 2018. And it has these 7 categories of areas that they call their digital literacy framework. And many of the frameworks I looked at had similar kinds of things. So collaboration, content creation, problem solving, even the devices themselves. So if we move to AI literacy, this is the digital education. Now I forgot what the C is. I forgot to write it down. They're taking 5 dimensions for their AI literacy framework, and they incorporate things that we just saw in the framework area before, or for digital literacy. But with the 3 levels, this is how I look at the 3 levels. The first one's gaining the knowledge and awareness, this should remind many of us who deal in behavior change. This is the first step to behavior change. Level 2 is the result, more of the how of what I'm doing and what effect am I having as I begin to use it. Level 3 to me is the outcome level. And they talk about a human-centered approach. That's great. Those are important things because ultimately what we're going to continue to find, and there have been a couple LinkedIn posts and articles about this, is that the people who can demonstrate critical skills, who can demonstrate, critical thinking skills, creativity, and even emotional intelligence are the ones who are going to continue to contribute to the rollout and implementation, if you will, of AI. A recent article that someone wrote on LinkedIn kept talking about the fact that it's the, I'm going to paraphrase it, it's the liberal arts majors of the humanities and the history and culture that are going to continue to have jobs because we understand that the large language models were trained on all of our writing, and our writing isn't machine learning going from step A to step B to step C. It is, he called it messy and beautiful or something like that. Just so you understand, there are ways to think about this as we talk about what does this mean for you. And I wanted to show you the World Economic Forum, which was the place that I found information on the digital literacy frameworks, has these 10 core skills in 2025. Some of them lead towards the soft skills. I don't love to call them that, the people skills. Others respond to what we were talking about with the role, your role, and what you bring to using AI as a tool. But I thought it was interesting. You may want to note these down and be able to start weaving them into your discussions for interviews, for if you're working with your boss and with colleagues about how and in what way you can demonstrate these. I thought it was very interesting in number 3 that they paired up leadership and what they call social influence. That was a surprise way of phrasing it for me. So I'm curious, we have someone, I don't know if you'd be willing to unmute. How do you think this information I've presented so far today affects you in what you're doing? If you don't mind unmuting, and if you don't unmute, I'll just go on. All right, then we will continue. Thank you. So I have had help from Perplexity to try to find job postings that are not job postings for AI technologists, meaning people who are building these large language models, expanding them, but rather where it's now showing up in job postings. It's been very hard for me to find those. And so this time I went to Perplexity. I asked for the titles business analyst, program manager, health educator. I think I did public health expert. And I asked for jobs that are open right now. So the first one Perplexity chose to start with business analyst job. And this is a remote job from the Philippines. Its requirements, its description is it's evaluating and improving AI solutions. And the requirements were that you have some AI tool familiarity. Some. I don't know what this means. I don't know how you demonstrate familiarity with tools, but at least they had a description in there. And in fact, when you look at the responsibilities of this job, AI is everywhere. But as you read through these, to me, it occurred to me, this is no different from rolling out a change management process where you're implementing a new workflow or introducing a new tool. I thought a lot about when we did a huge upgrade. I was still working a decade ago. Windows did a huge upgrade with a new look and feel, and our whole IT staff was involved in making sure certain people got it first because we were more early adopters. Everybody was given so much time to make the changes. And that's what this description reminds me of, which goes back to something we discussed a year and a half ago when I first talked about AI, and that is it is a tool similar to being able to use data analytical tools, to being able to use different project management tools. It is a tool, and this is underscoring that. Oh, policy analyst was one of the choices I gave for perplexity. And it came up with this, but when I actually tried to find this job, it was nowhere. But this was the summary of it. And I thought this was interesting because I'm looking at how they're phrasing what they think AI is going to bring to their jobs. And in this case, it said requires policy analysis abilities informed by AI context. So I searched on informed by AI context, and there was nothing there. I mean, there was a lot in a search that said you have to take the context and see what, I mean, it was just parsing the words basically. And the health educator job was an educator who's a trainer in AI. And I'm finding right now a lot of the jobs are falling in the business analyst, policy analyst kind of role of people who are keeping their eyes on things or summarizing the business environment or are doing the training for others. And in this case, the, this had me going to Google search again. Some AI annotation project background preferred. The definition of that is that it's labeling raw data to create structured data sets for training artificial intelligence and machine learning models. In my mind, that means taking all the stuff that this educator has used for education, for training other people, whatever their company has, pushing it into a large language model to make something relevant for him or her to be the trainer of all of their staff or their branches or whatever for beginning to use AI in a health educator role. And one of the related searches showed some of the areas that are coming forward of AI in work. And I thought these two areas specifically are for many of you who will watch this in replay or who are here today. So the way that we do our messaging and reach people, the way that we're going to be able to use this more in evaluation. But think again about what this means. An AI-informed policy evaluation might as well just be described as don't forget to use AI along with whatever you're doing, for example, to collect data in Qualtrics, the survey program. This is me, this is my opinion about it. I did find a very helpful enhanced.cv.com, a very helpful document on how and in what way to begin to incorporate AI into resumes. This was one of the few things I found, and I actually thought most of it was pretty good. I was surprised at this. So they started off with this growing trend, AI on resumes. It's gone from 6% to 11% in 1 year. It's still not being done very much. I've talked to you all about doing it in the past, and I think it's still really hard for the reasons I talked about in April. If you want to go back to those, it's not clear what people are expecting to see, et cetera, et cetera. They also talked about the top, they call them soft AI skills. I think the two you need to be thinking about are critical thinking in AI applications. That's where we bring our expertise and can really help it. But also AI for business strategy. That can help make some of us, like me, who's been a technocrat doing technical work and program evaluations. I'm not great at developing business and business proposals, and this might have been something that would have made me stronger. Here's where they're beginning to talk about categories of the ways you can describe, I call them categories, describe your skills. Are you the one that's using or developing chatbots, bots, and virtual assistants? Probably not. You may be doing customer support. Most people we work with aren't. But generative AI, you may be not on the creative content creator side, but even they'd say drafting emails, but I would say summarizing meetings, being able to put together an argument when you give it a report to say what's missing or what haven't you explained clearly. And AI for data analysis, especially if you stick to the AI that leads towards Excel with Copilot and Power BI, where there's going to be not a guarantee of no hallucinations, but you're in a program that's already knows how to do data analysis. All right, so what should you do? Here's, again, I think this is from Enhanced CV, yes. 3 areas, your summary or bio para, go ahead and start it right at the top of your resume if you feel you have a strong example. Now, their example is the way I see a lot of US resume writers say we should be writing 2 or 3 sentences about ourselves. They buried the lead. I feel like you need to start with your outcome. So I reworded it to marketing strategist with 5 years of experience, optimizing campaigns and increasing customer engagement and retention. That's the outcome. That's what you want people to hear. And then the tool is by leveraging AI powered analytics and generative tools. For me, that shows the place of AI in helping you produce an outcome. Then they say, just as we've talked about for years, some of you have been with me, weave your AI results into your experience is how I phrase it. Integrate it in there, and it's the same even before AI. Measurable achievements, don't just list the tools, show what you have to demonstrate and how you've been able to make it stronger with the AI tool, platform, whatever you're using. So there's 3 examples, and not surprisingly, I've rewritten each one. The first was for a content creator. I just flipped it around and said, reduce drafting time by 35% and accelerated, I forgot to make that, accelerated content pipelines by leveraging AI tools. I didn't leave the EG in there. If you mention 2 tools, that assumes that those are the specific tools that are relevant to start the first draft creation of reports and marketing copy. This may be wording that's helpful for all of us because we are using it in some fashion, I suspect, for making sure that we are able to draft messages, briefs, summary reports, YouTube scripts for whatever out of things that we've written for clients or for ourselves. For a project manager, I reframe this starting with the improving team efficiency by 50% using, and they didn't list a tool. Remember, be specific. Is it a tool? Is it a platform? You decide what you want to call it, but don't just say by using AI. They called it an AI-powered project management tool. If you've got that, then say it, even if it's specific to your org. Maybe your org built its own. And for a data analyst, saved an estimated 8 hours per week in manual labor and accelerating insights generation by automating. And again, list the tools that you're using so that they get a sense of it. Because Microsoft Excel with Copilot is a tool that can be very powerful, but we already know the power of Excel, as opposed to say, for example, I put a meeting transcript into ChatGPT and asked it for a summary. Those are 2 levels of skills that show what you can and can't, what you can and the way you've used artificial intelligence. And in your skills section, this is no different from what you've been doing. Make sure that whatever you list is relevant to what the job posting wants. Make sure that you're very clear, this is Sue speaking, that you have your ratings. Are you basic? Are you intermediate? Are you advanced in using these things? They call them tools and platforms you've used, and then also your AI competencies. Be careful about saying things like prompt engineering or AI literacy. Those are buzz phrases. Prompt engineering implies that it's some special thing, and I think we all have enough recipes and lists, process flows for writing prompts. I don't know what your hard drive looks like, but I started off saving everything I could find, and I don't know if I've gone back to them yet. Especially on the AI literacy, go back to the literacy framework. I showed you the Digital Education Council framework on AI literacy. If you're going to use that, use those dimensions and explain some of it in there to show a deeper understanding. And again, their key tips for adding AI experience are exactly what you all have been doing already. There's a whole lot of text with each of these, but this is nothing new. So I'm curious if you could just put in chat if you're interested. Just tell me one thing that you might use that's new for you or that you were reminded about and wanted to take forward today.
So yeah, I know I have not put it on too many things yet, and I want to. And there's a lot of good examples here, and I think that can help me think through some of that. And so I think you have a CV resume session coming up, and so I think I might try to bring some ideas to that, and then see if I can find good ways to work with them.
I love that, Peter. And you know that I co-opted you for the last time I talked, when I used your work in Micronesia for doing the teaching that you were doing and how you could make it culturally relevant if you didn't know anything about it. So I would love more examples. Part of the reason I use their examples is because I also need to learn more ways to incorporate it without it just seeming like you're writing experience for AI and ignoring everything else, even the project management thing that I revised had much more potential to talk about the real hard work of project management, which is managing people and coming in on budget and working with clients and things like that. So thank you. That would be great. I'd love it if you'd come. Yes, it's November 19th, so that would be wonderful, Peter, if you're willing to share those examples even better.
I do have, I think that part of what I've been thinking about as hard is that it's hard to put in AI experience when I feel like I have other more concrete things to put in, especially because I don't write that I used Word to write a report or I used PowerPoint to make a presentation. So it's hard to know how to fit in AI in a good way to, but I do like that you said things like AI informed policy or AI informed things or you creating efficiencies for things. I have to give it more directed thought, but I feel like it's hard to squeeze it in when I already have so many other things that I'm trying to show,
You're exactly
especially when it's not actually required in the job description that says you
right.
must have AI literacy or something.
And I'm sure that there's some of what we talked about the last time when I encourage people to start writing it. And that is if it's not in the job posting and you don't know the culture and the practices of the org you're applying to, you don't want to alienate them. You wouldn't write to CDC. I do all my data analysis with, I don't know what, with Perplexity, and they're not allowing anybody to use anything other than their lit review chatbot. So I get it, Peter. You're totally right. But the opportunity that is there, the but was intentional. The opportunity is there to learn how to talk about it. Even if you don't put it into an application, it might be something in an interview. I'm curious about where your organization is on adopting one or more kinds of large language models and how much you have the company incorporates it into workflow and processes. That might be a way to understand that. And it's interesting to me if you go back to the numbers, the McKinsey report on that showed that 3 times the number of the employees are putting much more effort into using AI in a lot of their work than leaders, they use the word imagine, than leaders imagine they're using. And I'm thinking either you're not allowing it and they're doing it behind your back, or you don't really have a good perspective on the various ways. Ask them, ask everybody, and you'll find things you never anticipated they'd be doing. So I think we're still in the building up period, but I do believe it can give you an edge as we start to hear that more companies are advertising for jobs with it, like that health educator where it said you have to have done some annotated whatever project. I forgot how they wrote about it. Or the policy, the AI context. Again, these phrases, they sound nice and then you read them. And then when I go to try to define them for you and me, it's clear it's just someone putting AI in a job posting.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I have some thoughts about AI prepared for an interview situation if it comes up too, of if they ask have I used it, or I like that as a I like what you just said as a way to for me to bring it up and ask what's their policy or how do they implement it or where they are on that spectrum. So I like that as an idea to start the conversation as well. That's good.
Glad that helped you. Yeah. Because I think we are in a way taking on a lot of burden, we the job seekers. And I was reminded of this when a friend of one of my other LinkedIn and resume expert friends made a comment on someone's post about resumes. I'd made a comment that job postings and culture of the company needed to change. And Linda wrote back and said, Sue, most job postings are so out of date. It's unbelievable. And it's true. They pull out the last one from 4 years ago and just get it out
Right,
there and advertise.
right.
But thank you. Yeah, I think it is one of the things you can do to take control of your side of the combo. Great. Thank you, Peter, for that. And for some reason, I'm losing my voice. So we're at today's takeaway to remind you it's time to start showing it, or at least thinking about showing it. At the very least, you can add those things into your skills section. You can talk about areas where you found it helpful, maybe not in your resume or your CV, but you may want to write some phrasing, some examples where it's been effective for you. So you've got those examples. You know me, I want it to go from the back chatter to the front and center, always available. So lots of references that I'll send out for those who are watching the replay. And Ron's not here, so I will close the meeting and say, I will see you in 2 weeks. And we are going to be talking about a topic I mentioned a lot, but haven't yet written much on it and we haven't had a mentor time on it. And that is verbal self-reflection and why you need a partner to do it with you. That's not the exact title, but that's what we'll be dealing with. So thank you for everyone's attention today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.